Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pro Physique Code.
Hello.
Good morning.
What's up, Evan?
Good morning.
Well, we've been busy, guys. We've been busy with shows and travel, and yeah, this week is the first week I've had off in a minute. I'm not going anywhere this weekend. You guys doing any shows?
I was going to go down to the Miami show, but my family is actually going to be in town from Saturday to Saturday. We had that big Disney trip planned last year in October, but was able to do it because of the hurricane, so it got rescheduled for this upcoming week.
I'm kind of bummed about the Miami show. It was one of those shows that I went to the last 3 or 4 years, had a lot of success there, and I just like South Florida. You know, I get to hang out with Brett, and my best friend lives down there. But they moved the show from June, Pearl. They moved the show from June to May, like 24th. And it's my son's 7th birthday party. And I'm like, well, that's not really a choice. So I'm a little bummed I'm going to miss out. But I do have Marina and Miriam doing it. I have some really good pro competitors doing it. So, yeah, I'm bummed.
Excited to see. I'm not going to that show. I mean, I don't really have a reason to. I mean, if it was like an easy drive, I would go. But I was excited seeing the list because like there's 2 big pro shows this week, Miami being one of them, and then Optimum being the other one. So I think Miami definitely has the, I would say, quote unquote, deeper list, and just in terms of pros in general. And I think Ashlyn is doing that show. So that's
Ashlyn and Allie were the 2 that I was like, okay, they're very different.
That's who I have in my predicted top 2 as well.
Yeah.
So we shall see. I know Remy.
I was surprised not to see Yulia on there. Is she just not competing?
You know,
I don't see she wasn't competing at either of the shows. I don't think. I don't see her.
It's just bizarre. I mean, I guess she just did Pittsburgh just as a like to get out there, but she lives in Miami. Like when I was coaching her, we did a lot of the Florida shows. She lives 30 minutes from there. So
yeah, I know. I'm sure it was strategic on her part. Not sure, but yeah, she's not on that list. So I'm sure she'll.
I think she's already Olympia qualified. It's not about that, but you know.
And she did New York last week too. So
did she?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're right. I did see her in that first call out. You're right. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. Back to back is too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 pro shows this weekend. So we'll have 2 potentially because Ashlyn is not Olympia qualified, and neither is Allie. No. So this is really when the season's going to get interesting because these, you know, they're going to be fighting for these spots.
And like a little shout out too. So not the Miami show, but the Optimum show. It has a lot smaller of a lineup for bikini pros, but I'm really excited to see Brittany Gillespie. She's coming back, and this is the first time she's competed this year, but I've just been following her for a while and feel like she's made some really good improvements. And I mean, I remember being at the show, it was Clash. Can't remember what year it was, but when she made her pro debut at that Clash show that one year and got 2nd. And ever since then, I've just followed her, and I think her improvements have been really great. So I'm excited to see her at the Optimum.
Yeah, that was actually Kathy Seitz made her pro debut that day and got 3rd.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was like, and actually Brittany and Yulia. So Yulia beat Brittany Gillespie at North Americans when she turned pro. That was a big deal for me because at the time Yulia was not a U.S. citizen, so she could only do North American. So we put all our eggs in winning her pro card there. And then when her and Brittany were side by side, I was like, oh boy. But she got the card, and then a few months later, Brittany won the overall at nationals. So like, you love to see that. You love when competitors. And yeah, Brittany, who won that show that day? Was it Issa? It was a powerhouse. It was like a
Ashlyn or Ashley.
No.
Ashley K, I think.
Maybe Ashley K. It was somebody big that she was like, and I remember after prejudging, one of the judges was like, what'd you think in pro bikini? And I was like, I said, I think I kind of have Brittany. He goes, yeah, we haven't decided. We're going to decide at finals. And then it was Amy. It was Amy.
You know what? You were right. You are right.
Yeah. And then I remember they came back at finals and they like literally had them do one turn and said, we're good. And I said, what happened? They're like, oh, Amy came back fuller. She looked way better at night.
Yeah. You know, and one thing like I I love how if you look at Brittany's physique over the years, she's really done a good job at like streamlining her physique to fit more of the bikini criteria. Cause I feel like when she first started as a pro, I mean, obviously second place at her pro debut is pretty damn good, but I think she was a little like glute dominant. I think more of that had to do with her posing, but I think she's really done a good job over the years at just like streamlining her physique. So I'm excited to see what she brings to stage this weekend. I mean, personally, I have her as my predicted winner for the Optimum show, but we shall see
Yeah,
it.
the Optimum show usually gets some, like the Sierra Swan is usually
She's
there.
doing it.
She's on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you usually get some girls from the Southeast doing it because it's not easy to get to that show. That is not
Yeah,
like
it's not
it's a weird airport and a long drive, and it's not a city that I would be like, hey, let's go to hang out. And yeah, so
Right.
so it gets I've actually had a couple girls win the overall NPC show there, and it's pretty small. Like they would have like 20, maybe 30 bikini girls at the show.
Okay.
But you get a pro judge. So that's what you want. If you live in that area, you go get in front of a pro judge. You know if you're ready to go to nationals if you get in front of a pro judge.
Right.
Yeah, so well, it's pro bikini. You know these girls are going to bring their A games. Um, I'm excited for Christy and Sandy. She's doing Miami,
Yep.
kind of announced her retirement and then decided to do a show right after. So I'll be curious to see how she responds. Um, yeah, I'm bummed. I hate missing these shows, but at the same time, like, you know, Junior USA's is right around the corner.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and your son's birthday, I feel like people would
Oh
understand.
gosh. No, yeah, it's as a dad, you realize these moments they go fast. Like it's his seventh birthday already. And
That's
like,
great.
on your Facebook or your Instagram or even just your photos on your phone now, like Apple will show you like timeline stuff. So I have like pictures of my oldest son, Sloan, who's 11, who was 4 when Jason was born, holding him when he was born. Like that stuff just pops up randomly now. And you're like, geez, like, that's my kids. They're like, they're like people now. They're like telling me what they want to eat. And, we want to go do that. It's just weird that one minute you're literally their entire existence hinges on you feeding them, changing them, taking them places. And then the next minute they're in charge.
Right.
That's how it works, right?
I feel like they're probably getting to a really fun age though, where it's like
Oh yeah.
they're not as like dependent on you. They're a little bit more independent. I feel like that's nice probably for you. And not for nothing, like being a dad, having boys, it's like they're kind of your built-in little best friends at times.
They love sports, well, not sports cards. They love Pokemon cards and soccer cards. So I grew up, I- I'm probably revealing too much, but I buy baseball cards all the time. Like it's like my little thing. I keep them here on my desk, and when I get a free minute, and I got a Jaden Daniels rookie. I don't know if you guys follow football, but so I was excited about that card. But like, so the fact that they're getting into that kind of a thing where they have like little books of cards at home, like yeah, Evan, I know you did baseball cards too.
Oh yeah.
Like it's fun to witness. So like for Jace's birthday, he wants to go. There's a store nearby where I give him like $50 and he goes through this giant bin of Pokemon cards and picks all the ones out he wants. So yeah.
That's so
That's
fun.
cool.
I love that. Well, happy birthday, Jace.
Yeah, it'll be good. And we're going to Splash Harbor.
Where's that
It's in Red Rock. Oh, not Red Rock. Why can't I think of the name of the beach? Down by Clearwater. It's
at? Oh, okay.
it's a water park on the beach. It's not a
Oh,
huge
cool.
water park, but it's got a lazy river.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Indian Rocks Beach. Sorry, I don't know why that blanked on me.
Oh, okay. I'll probably
But
be
it's good because you basically just go inside and the kids can just run around. Lazy river slides, and then we get a cabana where we can kind of hang out.
fun.
Yeah, so
Fun.
well, the
Before
the
we
idea for today. Oh, and I want to give a shout out. So,
do your review.
well, this is a new energy drink company. Man, that is just not showing up on the screen there, is it? It's called Reaction. So,
You can see a little better on mine.
what better way to get a reaction than to do a blind taste test? So, thank you to our friends at Reaction for sending over an energy drink. This one is called Power Sour Gummy, which immediately got my attention because I like sour, I like gummy. Power's okay too. Let's see here. Yeah, it tastes like apple gummy worms.
Ooh, that
It's not as
sounds
sour as I was expecting. I was thinking it was going to be
Right.
sour.
I have the pink lemonade one, and it's not as you know, pink lemonade sometimes has like a little sour bite at the end of
Little
it. This one
like
doesn't
bitter.
really have it. Yeah, it's good though. Because a lot of
Tell
times
you what
energy
though, it's
drinks,
very smooth and there's no
yeah,
aftertaste. Like
no.
some energy drinks, like when you have them, you're like, this is really good.
Yeah, you could drink this whole thing easily. Kind of like that's why a lot of people I think like Celsius because they're not overpowering. At least like, you know, the ones, especially the non-carbonated ones, they're not like overpowering. And I feel like this is not overpowering, so it's good.
Yeah, it's
Ingredient
got some
list is good too.
electrolytes. It's got a 200 milligrams of natural caffeine, cognizin, go BHB, sulflo 6. Yeah, I mean it's not just an energy drink. This is actually like a hydration energy drink. Be a really good for a on the way to the gym drink. So
Yeah,
they sent me a whole
that's
bunch.
great.
So I'm gonna be testing out all the flavors. So thank you guys. You know what? I'm gonna hold it up. Can I get it on the camera here? Yeah,
There you
there we
go.
go. Can you do a
Good
screen
clean label
cap?
too.
Take a picture, Lexi.
Okay, one sec, one sec. I'll just be over here with my non-allergy. Okay, I got something. I don't know if the
I'll
That'll
tag them
work.
on social media. I don't even honestly, I don't even follow them. I literally just got the box today. So
Yeah, I don't think they're actually out in stores yet.
yeah.
It's very, very new.
Oh, that's exciting. We're getting in on the ground floor.
Ground floor.
We'll be the trendy ones.
For once, right?
Because I don't think I tried a Celsius for like years after they were out. I was so in the habit of like Monsters, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden Celsius was everywhere. It was like,
It's
man,
funny because Celsius is truthfully like, don't get me wrong, I will drink one if it comes down to it, but I would say that's probably my least favorite
Yeah.
energy drink. Sorry, Celsius. Like again, I'll drink them, but I'm a big like I love Ghost.
Ghost.
I also really have been getting into I like PE Science. I like theirs because they're lower in caffeine. So, but I don't discriminate against any energy drinks. I love
The way I would describe this is a mix between like a Ghost and a Celsius. So Celsius are not like incredibly overpowered. Ghost can sometimes be like a little
yes,
extra sweet on
yes.
there. This is kind of in the
the
middle with that.
carbonation is very mild too. Like some of them
Mild.
are so
Yeah.
carbonated. This is very mild. Like it's very like drinkable.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
It
I'll be
needs tequila.
cheers.
This would actually be good with alcohol.
Hey, like first good information of the podcast. My go-to drink if I'm like having some drinks by the pool is tequila and a white monster. It goes together perfectly. I can't tell you.
White monsters are good. Fun fact, I remember that was the first energy drink I ever tried because I remember some of the YouTubers I followed at the time were like always doing white monsters, and they would actually do white monsters and they would mix in like a pump product into it before they would
Hmm.
train. And that's I got on that trend. So, well, so our topic today, Paul, do you want to explain kind of what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, I mean, contest prep is challenging, and I think the thing as we coach longer in our careers, you know, you get exposed to different scenarios where fat loss stalls. And coaching involves, okay, figuring out how we can get through this stall phase, not only the physical, you know, aspect of it, like, okay, we got to get the body fat off, but the mentally challenging aspect of a client checking in, didn't make progress, you made adjustments, they're starting to like panic. Um, and I had a great conversation yesterday with a client. Um, she checked in and she said, I'm really stressed. So I said, well, let's just jump on a phone call real quick because she was down about a pound and we're still like 6 weeks out, but I wanted to know why she was stressed. She's like, oh, I feel like I'm not lean enough. And I said, you're not lean enough. Stress is good. Like, I think some people get stressed over something and they think that's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that stress is what causes change. Now, you don't want to have stress that never ends, but let's talk about today, like the topic of not only the, you know, calories, the cardio, the supplementation, the mechanics of what do you do when you're stuck in prep, but I want to talk about the mindset of what it means to be in prep. Because I
Yeah.
think, Evan, we talk about this a lot. Lexi, you know about this. I think some people want prep to be easier, and really good athletes are excited for it to be harder.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and like what you just said too about the stress, I talk with my athletes a lot about like it's more so about your perception of the stress. Like I think, we could sit here and wish that, like we could sit here and say, oh, well, stress will go away at one point, but like to be realistic, most of the time you're always going to have some sort of stress in your life to some capacity, but it's like you can get better at the way you perceive that stress over time, right? And like some people don't want to hear that because it's not easy to fix your perception of stress, right? But I think we all know like there are people out there that literally one little thing happens and they, it stresses them out for weeks and weeks on end. Whereas some people, it's like something happens and they handle it in the moment and they, it's not that big of a deal. So I think stress perception more than anything is like a really, really big key point in prep, and something that I think more people need to think about before getting into contest prep too is like, how do you perceive your stress? Do you have some really good tools in your toolbox to really help you to, get through some of those stressful points? Because like stress is going to show up in many different ways throughout contest prep, and you have to know how to kind of perceive that and get through it.
I think a lot of the information out there too is skewing people's perception of prep, especially newer competitors on things. Because there's a lot of people like us too will include it and say prep doesn't have to be horrible, right? Like it doesn't have to be these crazy extremes. We're more talking about like with the cardio and the diet part, not the fact that it's not going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It just doesn't have to be abusive and hard at the same time with it. And I think people get skewed on that. I had a client the other day that said, "Hey, like when you dropped my food, I was really, really worried that I just, I didn't think I was going to be able to get that. And I was really so happy with this week and how everything went." And I'm like, good, I'm excited with that too. But you also understand we're going to have to go down considerably farther from where we are right now to get to where we need to go. And again, I would say I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm trying to prepare you for what's to come with this. Because a lot of people think it's supposed to just be this easy thing and little tiny minute changes, and then everything magically comes together at the end. And look, for some people, that's the case. With most people, it's not. Most people, it's
Yeah, I would
not.
even caution against for some people it's the case because in my experience, even if I have an athlete like a Lexie, who's literally a robot, who post show, we get her calories up. I mean, we get your calories up really high, Lexi, probably close to 2000 or higher at like 110 pounds, right? Which is
Mhm.
ridiculously high for, when I'm talking about like the highest I've ever seen someone be is like 21 times their body weight in calories or like 21, so Lexi's close to that. She's probably 18 or 19. There's still points where Lexi and I are dropping calories, adding cardio, and it's like your body gets stuck in this
Yeah.
spot. And so even if you have the perfect off season, you're eating a ton of food, you're hardly doing any cardio, your lifestyle's in check, you're going to hit a sticking point, you're going to get stressed. And then what's weird is once you get through that threshold, it's almost like the body goes, "Oh, okay, cool, we can just keep going
Yeah.
now." So there's
Right.
always a threshold. And it's sometimes it's 2 or 3 weeks of adjustments before you get
Hmm.
through it. The way we do things, there are some coaches out there that like week one, 1,200 calories, 2 hours of cardio. And so I've had people actually explain to me, like, Coach, I had a bad week this week. I only lost 1.5 pounds. And I'm like, well, that's a great week. Oh, well, last prep, I was losing 4 or 5 pounds a week. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you're working with me now. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes you have to reframe that. But that threshold exists for every person, men, women. There is very few people that stay near or at stage lean. Now, this might change with the fit model division, but I still had to crush Daniela. Like there was points where we were at 70, 80 carbs and 90 minutes of cardio and prep to do fit model, but we were aiming for bikini. So like, yeah, I don't know. The difference in my mind when I'm in prep, Evan, when we're in prep, I think we go, oh cool, we get to make some changes.
Yeah.
Right.
I I do think that's important. You said that, Paul, with like where you're pushing to get into fit model, right? With that. And how hard you need to push people, a lot is dependent on their genetics and how far they need to go, but a lot of it's genetic, people, like a lot of it. Um, how hard I have to push some people compared to how hard I have to push other people is not a one to one. It's not close. It's not close. There's some girls that I have to feed far more than guys going into shows, significantly more. And there are some cases here with, I mean, I have a girl that competed at 84 pounds. She doesn't look 84 pounds, but she was 84 pounds on stage. She's 5 foot, very small, did not look close to it. And she was eating a ton of food going into the show, a ton of food going into it. But that's not the case for everyone, right? It's not. So I think we talked about this before, but getting your food up high in an off season is awesome. That's great, especially if you get a good body composition. That does not mean the food is going to be high in prep. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't
Right.
mean that at all. It just means that you can push the fat loss phase for longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's also a direct correlation between the amount of muscle that you have and the amount of food that you can consume in a prep too. And a lot of newer competitors don't really get that. Um, and it's also based on kind of like your height and weight, right? Like we talk about that a lot. Like if I have a girl that's 5 foot tall and her stage weight is going to be probably 95 pounds, then 900 calories, 950 calories is low, but it is not abusive compared to someone that's, 128 pounds on stage. That's 5'8", right? Those calories are going to be different because the size of the human being is significantly different.
Yeah. And I know I've had, Paul, you kind of mentioned this a second ago. Like I've had some clients too that maybe this is not our first prep together, or maybe maybe it is our first prep together and they've worked with another coach before. Maybe this is our second prep together. And sometimes, in that second prep or that third prep that they do, they are comparing back to like their past preps. Well, okay, in this last prep, I was already this, I was this weight and I was this, many weeks out. And this time around, I'm not this weight and I'm this, many weeks out. And then they start to get in their head about like kind of comparing where they were in their last prep to where they're at in this current prep. And I always say, I mean, every prep is going to be different. Especially if you take a long, time off stage, you build muscle, you have a different body composition. Every prep is going to be a little bit different. And, and that's kind of, I mean, I think it's kind of cool. Like every prep that you do as an athlete is generally not going to be similar. You're not going to just be able to diet on the same amount of calories and get the same response. But some people get in their head about that. I think some people, especially newer competitors who maybe have just done one season, they get into that second prep and they think it's going to be the exact same. And like, that is generally not the case. So kind of getting away from like that comparison of past preps, I think is really important just from a stress standpoint, not stressing yourself out more than you need to.
It's interesting you say, Lexi, because the way I kind of look at it, because I keep a lot of data on Google Sheets on my competitors, and especially when it comes to the prep side of things with it. And when you talk about like weight at certain points of prep with it, yes, if we've had a really good all season, we put on muscle, then I usually would like to estimate. It's like, okay, maybe we put on, 3, 4 pounds of muscle here in this off season here. And let's say we're 30 days out from the show, and we were conditioned for the last show. I would like to be somewhere in that 3 to 4 pounds up from where we were at that previous show, right? That I think is a good comparison, and that's a lot of times how we'll adjust and push people into shows with it, or know when to kind of pull back. I'm like, okay, we are way ahead of schedule, or we're way behind schedule, sort of thing with that. So no, not all prep is the same. That's absolutely the case with it. The weight's not the same, the food's not the same, but the more you prep, the more similarities you will end up seeing between them, especially if someone is like a robot, right? Like they have really productive off seasons. They're really good on their prep. And I think when people get into prep too, and Paul, we've talked about this, giving like goals, right? Like, hey, we need to be here by the end of next week.
Yeah, I like to set up, okay, I'll say to somebody, because I remember back to my preps, like I had a plan, but I didn't always know what the goal was. Like I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I know I'm in prep, but what's the goal? So I have found it pretty powerful if I say to someone, hey, by the end of May, I want to be 107. And then they know, oh, okay, so that's the goal for this month, is to be
Hmm.
down 5 pounds over the course of this 4 weeks. And I find that they'll start to alter their behaviors if
Yes,
things
they
aren't
will.
adjusting. They'll go, okay, what am I doing wrong? They'll ask questions. So yeah,
They'll get up
it's
and move more. That's a big one. And I'll
yeah.
tell people, hey, we need to be here at this weight by the end of next week. Like this is where we need to be. And
Well, we'll
magically,
talk about some actual specific. I love to give
yeah,
specific information. I do want to give a shout out to Coach Sarah Winstead from Pro Physique. If you guys see any of our Instagram, YouTube stuff, she does all our graphic design. She's also a fantastic competitor. She was a swimmer at Clemson, so she has a lot of muscle. So she last competed in 2023, and she won her class at Girl Power. She won her class at Junior USA's. And I think she got second in her class at Junior Nationals, right? Just had a great season. And she's in prep right now. And so she had one of those idealistic off seasons. And I think we were winning her classes at like 103, 104. And she's right now like 105, 106 as a natural competitor, right? So she's put on a little bit of tissue, but it's just funny how she looks completely different. Like, so I know the numbers get kind of similar when you get down, like the weight looks similar, but the look is completely different when you've been consistently eating and training um, for a number of years. It's I think some people get so caught up in like, oh, I want to add 5 pounds of muscle. And if you go to the gym, go to the store and you hold a 5 pound steak, just think how much tissue that is. Like that is a lot of tissue. And if you've been training for many years, but a pound or two of muscle can look completely different on a small person.
100% can, especially in the right places.
Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do we want to talk about some common things that or common reasons like we see as coaches that maybe when it comes to prep, I mean everybody, I don't care who it is, generally everybody's going to hit at least one sticking point. Do we want to talk a little bit about like sometimes what we see being the cause of those sticking points, or just do we want to kind of touch on some of those things?
I'd like to give scenarios.
Okay.
So maybe we could each kind of just come up with a scenario of like a client who's stuck and kind of talk about some numbers, some cardio, some approaches. We'll talk about when it's time to, after that, we'll talk about when it's time to take some recovery, things that we look for with our wellness scores. Because I know, Evan, you've got, you just had that young lady win the overall out in Arizona at a big
Mhm.
show, and she got a free entry to like, was it Amateur Olympia?
Amateur Olympia, yeah.
So, I mean, that was a big show, and Phoenix has a really good population of competitors. So when you have competitors competing at the, I know you've had to make some adjustments along the way. So talk about some of your, because you've got a lot of girls that you're posting right now that are lean. So let's
Hmm.
talk about some sticking points you've had and like conversations you've had, but like some actual, you don't have to give names, but let's talk about like adjustments.
Yeah. I mean, look, it always depends on the athletes. I've been lucky that some of my athletes don't get stuck a lot of the times, which is great. It's almost like a linear fashion all the way down. I think a big reason for that is I err on the side of way longer preps than shorter preps on there because it gives us just way more room. And I tell every competitor I have, if this show is this date, let's shoot for 3 weeks earlier than that. This is our show date. Our show date is here. So we shoot for that date, not the show date itself. That way we're ahead of the ball game. Or if we do need to push, we have more time to be able to push on there. Some of the sticking points we run into with it a lot of times is effort when it comes to the cardio. People start kind of mailing it in when it comes to that and just move. And I'm like, hey, if your heart rate's this low, we can absolutely continue to just move, but we need about double the time on there. Like we're going to need significant more time on there.
Yeah, this is
Um,
where I'll actually have them start tracking their calories
yeah.
burned per session.
Hmm. I do that. Yep.
Some people just prefer that from the beginning. My general advice is break a sweat
Hmm.
because the amount of effort you have to put in to break a sweat at the end of prep is a lot higher than at the beginning of
For
prep.
sure.
Yeah.
It
We all know
absolutely
that
is,
first
right?
time we decide to do cardio for 30 minutes, we're like, what the hell? Right. And at the end of
Oh my
prep,
gosh.
you can go
Yeah.
for an hour and barely break a sweat.
Yep.
You're like, man, okay.
I have so many girls that will be deep into prep and they're so concerned. They're like, I cannot get my heart rate up. And I'm just, like, I cannot get it up as easy as I was at the beginning of prep. I'm like, yep, that happens. You get better and better at cardio as you get leaner and the more cardio you do.
I think it's
Yeah. And
important though, because so before we finish up with you, Evan, when people hear that, they go, oh, well, what's the point if I'm doing cardio, but I'm not burning as many calories? You're still burning calories.
yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely still burning calories, just not the point, right? With it. Some of the other things I see a lot of times is their steps will dramatically go down, their movement starts to drop. That's why we talk about Paul, like giving like goals, like, hey, we need to be this weight. Like we need to be here and make that abundantly clear. And then guess what they do? They take less liberties on their food. They get up and they move more. They put that little bit more effort into cardio to get to where we need to go on that. Instead of just following a plan like a robot with it, which is great, right? But we're also not there with the people themselves on there. We don't see them doing the movements. We don't see the effort they're putting in. We don't. We can get all the data we want, but that's not there in person. So that's part of it. Another thing that I ran into the other day, I've had a client that was stuck and her body was really beat up. So we pulled back on the training and gave a small diet break. And then I started looking at some stuff too. And she was mismeasuring a few things on her fats, and her fats were probably about 20 grams higher than she thought they were. So that's a really another big reason that we had been stuck at times. That's I found a lot of times with it. Look, macros are great, but what people also need to understand is you can't just trust what's on MyFitnessPal. You need to compare it to the actual food label itself. You have to compare it because entries are not always the same when
Well,
it
and
comes to that.
if we want to dig in deeper on that topic, one surefire way to make sure it's not the food is make all your own food, because
Yes.
there's been multiple lawsuits against companies like G Butter. There was a brownie company. I don't want to mention them by name, but they had a lot of issues a couple years ago. And even like protein bars have been sued for mislabeling by hundreds of calories. So if
That's
you're
And
eating something with a label, try, like, I literally will say, like, just try cutting out anything you don't make for a couple
mhm.
days, and voila, the scale's moving.
This is what I suggest to ever or an example I draw with people, especially we talk about like getting stuck and stuff, right? And I'll push things down. We're like, wow, this is a big push deeper. I'm like, okay, so let's say I just cut you about 100 calories here. Let's say it's just 100. We need 3,500 calories in a deficit to burn another pound of body fat here. So we cut 100 calories. How long do you think it's going to take to turn to lose another pound of body fat? Let's just do the math on this.
Right.
And then it kind of clicks in their brain a little bit. They're like, oh, okay, no, that makes sense. And also, too, Paul, like you're talking about, something is mislabeled, right? And let's say you're 100 extra calories in a deficit, and you're having one of those protein bars a day that's 200 calories over what it says it is. All that deficit's blown plus some.
Yep.
It's gone.
Well, that's the beauty of making adjustments to a plan, is because if you make an adjustment to someone's plan and they have to kind of rework their whole meal plan, like they have to kind of go, oh, okay, I can't have that anymore. Sometimes it's that one thing that they pull out, like,
Yeah.
oh, they stopped putting oil in the pan. Or I just had a client check in with me today and she's like, well, I've been eating these chicken strips that have these macros. And I was like, well, where are they from? They're from this health food place. I said, okay, but you don't know how they're preparing them, what oil they're putting in them. Yeah, they're air fried, and I said, let's just pull it out for a couple days and let's just see, like, so you get so used to just like repeating your behaviors in prep
Yeah.
that, I've had people tell me that, like, I didn't even realize it, but I was having 3 or 4 coffees a day with creamer, and it's a couple hundred calories, but I started with one and worked my way up to 4 as I got hungrier. So your brain was actually just like screwing you up, because the
I,
hungrier you got, the more coffee you were having, which was more calories. So your brain was like, cool, let's have more of that.
mhm. I could bring
right.
up two more examples on this. No, no, first thing is the same client with the fats. She said I'm having about a gram of avocado oil per meal. I'm like, about a gram? First of all, do you have any idea how hard it is to measure a gram of weight? You need, I call it like the little Julia, the crack scale, right? Like the little drug scale to be able to measure a gram of oil. That is such a low amount of that. Like to you measure that accurately, I guarantee you it's more than that. Guarantee you. And the second one, I mentioned this before, is people think like mustard and everything is super low calorie. And look, it is to a certain extent. But if you look at the back of the label, it says like 5 calories per like 10 grams or something, or 5 grams, whatever it is on there. And if you look at the bottle, it's like 300 servings in a bottle of that. I was going through one prep like a few years ago. I was having 300 calories a day in mustard and not even realizing it. So things like that can make a difference. And you have to evaluate things like that. If you aren't making progress and your calories are low and your cardio is high, something's off.
Right.
Your calories are not as low as you think they are. They're not. You're doing something.
Yeah, it's really easy, I feel like, for people when you get deeper into prep, like those little, essentially 0 calorie things. It's easy at the beginning of prep to start with like, one serving of that a day. And then by the end of prep, sometimes people just abuse those things. And then,
Mhm.
not for nothing, a lot of things are not technically 0 calories. And if you're consuming, 10 plus servings of that a day, it can really, really add up, even with like sugar-free gum or I don't know, like drink flavoring, those types of things too. Condiments. I mean, I feel like those things for a lot of people gradually build and build and build over time in prep. So, that can make a big difference.
I know another big reason too, we've talked about this is the vegetable side of it, right? So let's say they're at 125 grams of carbs and they take 50 grams of those carbs and put it in vegetables. Do you have any idea how much volume that is at 50 grams of carbs worth of broccoli and asparagus and zucchini and squash? It is a metric fuck ton. It
It,
is so much.
yeah,
It can be great for satiety, but it's not great for your digestive system.
No.
And so it's something that I'm okay with in the bulk of prep, but you got to be ready in peak week to get rid of that. And maybe a little bit before, because you don't want to throw too many changes at the body at the end of prep. But yeah, that's another one. I've also, had some athletes come to me and say like their coach told them that veggies didn't count. So they
Yeah.
were basically
It's a lot.
binge eating on veggies. Like they were eating like multiple cans of green beans and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I mean, if you're eating multiple cans of something, there's probably 100 carbs in it, right? Like, so like, yeah, it was probably saving you to a degree, but there's no accountability there. And that's really what we
Yeah.
thrive off of. So let's talk a little bit about our wellness scores and so nutrition wise, I think we all kind of agree. We need to be willing to make adjustments despite what, some people's adversity might be to that. You've got to be willing to get your calories down, but we look at a little bit more than that. So Lexi, you had some say so in this. So let's talk about the wellness scores and like what you're looking at each week when you're looking at a client's numbers.
Yeah, so we have I'll have to pull them up but I know like we have the general adherence score.
Number one is adherence.
Yeah, number one is adherence. And I'll be honest, I think most of the time, and we can probably all agree, most of our prep clients, adherence wise, are going to be pretty high, right? That is our expectation in prep. But we have digestion, we have sleep, we have stress, we have what else do we have on there?
Training intensity
Training, yeah, and I
and
know,
hunger.
yeah, and hunger, and I know a big thing that I look at, especially, is going to be the digestion and stress scores. If I have a client who's deep into prep, and let's say we're really pushing in terms of food, cardio's high, and their weight it's maybe up or it's just not making sense. Of course, I'll look at adherence first, but a lot of times that adherence is going to be pretty good. So I like to really look at that digestion and the stress, because I know for a fact, I mean, if a client is if their digestion is off one week or they're not going to the bathroom, I know that is going to absolutely elevate that weight, right? I see that all the time, because a lot of times, deeper into prep, digestion is going to be something that I don't want to sit here and say it's normal for digestion to be bad deep into prep, but it's going to slow down to an extent, and you're going to have to be a little bit more intentful with like keeping that digestion on track deep into prep. But stress is another big one too. Oh, and sleep is another score that we look at too. So if I notice that a client's sleep score is really low, their stress score is really high, we're gonna expand upon that a little bit. And I encourage my clients that the personal notes section that we have in our check-in form, like I have had multiple occasions where I will send an email back to clients if they don't give me enough information, just asking for more detail, because I never want to assume. And honestly, like, I think we can all agree deeper into prep. And honestly, for any of our clients, like the more information we have, the better we can help, right? So I like to dive into like the stress, the sleep, the digestion, especially if those scores are not ideal, find out a little bit more about why those scores are not ideal. And then a lot of times, in that case scenario, it'll make sense as to why weight is reflecting the way it is. Another big thing that is kind of a like ding 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 to me as a coach is deep into prep. If I have clients that tell me, hey coach, my lifts are like, I'm really struggling to lift heavy, my legs are feeling like bricks, like that, whenever I hear that, that is when I kind of know, or I interpret, okay, we're probably pretty inflamed and we may need to either do a couple things, take a couple of extra rest days, take a deload week, or sometimes it's as simple like if the legs are feeling really heavy and brick like, I'll have the client change their cardio modality. So if they're doing, stairs, or maybe they're doing incline walking, but they're like putting that incline up to like 15, I'll have them bring that down just so their cardio is a little bit less impactful on their legs. And that's something I hear a lot, is the heaviness of the legs. And generally I interpret that as, okay, we're pretty inflamed and we probably need to take some active recovery or tweak that cardio modality.
Yeah, and I think a good point to bring up that too. That's all super important stuff. Like fatigue management is huge when it comes to that. I also think it depends on kind of where we are in prep. I had a conversation with my clients this morning that we're like a week and a half out from the show, and she's like, "I'm tired and inflamed." I'm like, "You're going to be until we get to peak week here. Sorry, like
Yeah,
we got to keep pushing." So there's times when you absolutely got to bite the bullet and do things that are suboptimal if you got to get to where you want to go. But and I just always want to put that out there, right? Because
Yeah.
there's caveats to everything when it comes to this. But until you get to those circumstances on there where it's this is listen, sorry, we got
But
to go there
especially when
now.
you're progressing. So Evan, my thing with a person that's like, man, I am beat up, I am tired. I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
but look where you were at 4 days ago and look where you're at now. Like my favorite story ever was Daraja the week before the Olympia. We got second to Phoebe in Texas, and we were flying to the Olympia, and the feedback was, we want you tighter. And like literally, Daraja and I had a heart to heart on Saturday night. We had a flight Sunday morning to Vegas. Saturday night after the show, we did an hour of cardio. And I say we because I was like, well, I'll just do it with you. And Sunday, before we got on our flight, we did an hour of cardio. We flew to Vegas, went to the gym, and did an hour of cardio before bed. We did 60-minute AM and PM cardio, and I had her on like 60 or 70 carb for 3 or 4 days straight going into the Olympia. She dropped like 2 pounds that week,
Yeah.
and she leapfrogged everybody, and that's when she finished fourth. So that was peak week, not ideal, but the feedback was get leaner. And so sometimes you got to be willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. Like that's
Absolutely.
nobody on that judging panel is asking like, hey, did you have your calories in a healthy range? Hey, were you willing to not do 2-a-day cardios? No, they don't care. It's when you walk out under those lights, that's it. The show's over. There's no going backstage. There's no pumping up differently. There's no peaking differently. When you walk out there and you stand side by side and you do a couple turns and you go off, that's it. No judge knows anything about you.
Right.
And so, yeah, like that's sometimes the conversation I'm having with athletes, pulling them out of shows, pushing them into shows is like, hey, I know we go to these damn shows. We say it all the time. There's almost always somebody at a show that is like, that your eye just goes to them, and it means they're usually a little bit leaner, they've peaked a little bit fuller, they just have that presence, and that's the goal as a coach. You want that to be your person.
Yep.
Right. And that's, another point, like to that point, sometimes I'll encourage clients, and I know not everybody has the leisure of doing this depending on where you live, what time of year it is. But if you're deep into prep, and let's just say you're really struggling, like you're just, you're in the thick of it, which we all get to that point. I will encourage people, go to a show. If there's a local show that pops up, go to a show, go to like maybe a seminar, that's being put on, and like being around other competitors. Because I mean, ideally, if you can go to a show, let's say you're 3 weeks out and you're really struggling, you're in the thick of it, and you go to a show and you see those competitors on stage, one, it's going to remind you of like that conditioning that you are chasing, and going to put things into perspective, but it's going to probably light a fire under your ass and get you through those last couple of weeks. So I think that is really helpful too. And then just like going to seminars, and that can be just a really good way to continue to push through like that thickness and that grind that we all have to get to in prep. And it's usually, I find for a lot of people, it's usually between that like 3 to 6 week out mark where, you really start to feel it. So doing those types of things, if you can, I think can be really helpful too.
Mhm.
Let's talk
And then
about when it comes to getting stuck in fat loss, other major factors that you guys, we've talked a little bit about the mindset of being willing to push through. We've talked a little bit about the cardio. We've talked a little bit about nutrition. What are some other X factors that we are going to bring up with clients? I know I have a supplement that we're not going to talk about PEDs. I'm not a big fan of clenbuterol. Like, I don't know if you guys have experienced it with it,
Mhm.
good or bad. I have some clients that have a positive response to it, and I'm okay with them using it. But for the most part, I have found that all it's doing is really the job of a good thermogenic, increasing your energy throughout the morning. But I've also found that it's got a really high likelihood of anxiety, and I don't love the heart palpitations.
Yeah, I
Yeah, if you take too much of it, that is absolutely a thing that happens. Yeah.
I do really like yohimbine. If somebody wants to like go the route of something similar, I think yohimbine is like only if it's taken like in a fasted state, that can be kind of
Mm-hmm.
something that mimics a similar effect. I know I have clients that ask all the time about fat burners and prep. And sometimes I do think that, like going back to what we said earlier about how in prep, the deeper you get, usually it's harder to get your heart rate up during cardio. So I think it can be beneficial to take a little bit of like a thermogenic in the morning before you do your cardio. And it kind of helps to elevate that heart rate a little bit easier before you do it. So I think that can be a good strategy too, if you really want to get technical with things.
Look, anything get your heart rate up when you're doing cardio is going to be a benefit for you because it means you're going to burn more calories doing it.
Yes.
That's what it's about. It's what it's
Mhm.
about. And when it comes to fat burners and things like that, yes, the same thing with yohimbine, right? Like the side effect of yohimbine is anxiety, and it's the same thing with computerol. Side effect is anxiety. It's because it
I mean,
causes
enough
it.
caffeine will
Your
give you anxiety.
a lot of yeah, same people, right? So I typically tell athletes, I'm like, if you are prone to anxiety, like chronic anxiety, then these two products are probably not going to be something you want to stay. You probably want to stay away from it for the vast majority of people like that struggle with chronic anxiety with it. Another issue I do see a lot with clenbuterol is people thinking the amount of clenbuterol I see or I hear of people taking is baffling to me. It is baffling. They use it as a form of. I've worked with a guy that was taking so much clen. He's like, I didn't have to do any cardio. I'm like, I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't have to do any taking that
I
amount.
literally
Like,
sat there with my heart beating out of my chest all day.
yeah,
Like, yeah, that doesn't sound dangerous.
that doesn't sound. And another big issue with that too is most people get it from like research chemicals in the liquid form. It's not always mixed correctly. They don't shake it up, and they don't use it correctly, and they don't even know how much of it they're even taking. So there's a lot of issues around that hit for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, another big factor I think that plays into it is like life circumstances, right? Life circumstances. Now, I don't think that stress is going to stall your fat loss completely, but it impacts everything else in your life to where it ends up causing issues. So, I mean, we've all been in like relationships that probably not the best, right? To where that takes our main focus around from everything else in our life. Takes priority and other things slip because of that. And that can happen a lot of time with work and life and relationship stress and things like that. I can tell you almost every occasion I have with a client that says, hey, like they're going through some relationship stuff or, they're and their husband or them and their wife is kind of getting at it a little bit. They don't make progress at weeks. They don't.
It's like it is a domino effect. I do find the higher stress, like in those instances, usually for a lot of females, it slows down their digestion. They're not going to
Hmm.
the bathroom. Their sleep starts to not be so great. And, we could sit here and talk about sleep too. I think that's an important, key too. Cause like it's not that necessarily getting low sleep in itself is going to stall fat loss. It's like the domino effect that it has on everything else, right? You're not going to be able to push in your training as hard. Your cardio is probably not going to be as intentful. You're just going to feel more sluggish throughout the day. Your meat activity is going to go down. So it's like it has this kind of cascading negative domino effect for everything else you're, doing throughout the day.
One other
Yeah,
point I
well,
wanted to bring up. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
this is why years ago when I was introduced to this product, Core Hard, um, I honestly didn't understand what was happening when my clients started taking this. The ingredient in there that is now, I think it's up there as one of the top selling supplements in the world, which is called KSM-66, which is a
Ashwagandha. Yeah.
yeah, it's a but it, and
So
Doug Miller had to educate me on why KSM-66, and now there's another version called Shadogan, which is in my new. So I'm coming out with a test booster for specifically for men over 40 that aren't on testosterone, but this Shadogan version of ashwagandha. So they're basically getting better at making it more effective, right? Because if you just
yeah.
take the raw extract, it can be varied. KSM 66. So I had people start taking this. And when you work with women for many years, you realize that many more women are type A anxious than men. And so things like flying, things like life stress, they're just better at handling it, I guess is like they just carry a lot of it. And so what I noticed was I would put them on Core Hard, which is DIM and KSM 66 are the two most powerful ingredients. I would have them start taking it before bed, not as a go to sleep aid like a melatonin, but it lowers your cortisol to the point where you sleep a little bit deeper.
Mhm.
And then later in prep, I would have them start taking it at middle of the day and then before bed. And then at the end of prep, when I have someone that's like kind of running on all cylinders, they're maxed out on their work schedule, they're maxed out on their diet, they're maxed out on it. I have them take it after their morning cardio. I have them take it in the middle of the day. I have them take it before bed. And it just keeps, literally, they tell me they snap less at people. They're, less angry throughout the day. That's one thing about, low blood sugar when you get deep into prep. And then literally, I wouldn't change anything and the scale would start dropping. And I'm like, what is happening? And like you said, Lexi, the body's dynamic. So if your sleep is impacted, hormones, digestion, NEAT, all these things are going to be compromised. And if you can just, we're so finely tuned at the end of prep. Like if you can just tweak little dials, a little bit better recovery, a little, it's amazing. And so I don't think these supplements are necessarily like, you know, some things are going to have like you take it and immediately you feel an impact. This is more like the day I start taking this, I do start noticing I'm just calmer. My day is smoother.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is literally the number one supplement on every program I send to somebody. I say, get this now. And it, you know, it actually has been shown in men to allow more free testosterone production, right? So it blunts that conversion to estrogen. So yeah, KSM 66 sounds like a supplement commercial at this point, but you know, to the point, like this is what prep is. It's like, you know, any moron can just send stuff out and say, here, just go eat 1,000 calories and do 3 hours of cardio. But when you're trying to actually take care of people and turn dials to get them down, the body is really fun. Like
I
there
like
are,
that you
yeah,
say the turn of the dials. That's like a really great analogy because I kind of think of prep as like it's a puzzle, like you're piecing together all these little puzzle pieces at the end and, you know, trying to find what works to kind of create the puzzle, you know, in its whole. And it's fun. It's fun. Like I think that's one of the things that's exciting about this job too, is like there is no textbook out there to my knowledge that you can just go to and look up a certain client scenario and see, oh, yep, this is that client. Here's what I need to do. Like it's a lot of, you know, trial and error and also like hearing the client out, trying different things. And yeah, so it's fun.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to touch on is, and it kind of not piggyback, but to backpedal back to the carbohydrate conversation we're having about, you know, if I have someone, let's say, 125 grams of carbs and 50 grams of the carbs worth their vegetables. Look, we have to also understand what the purpose of the carbohydrates is, and that's to be able to fuel our workouts and give us energy and everything like that. It's not to feel fuller. Like that's
right.
not the purpose of it. So I see clients, they send me food logs and I'll look, I'm like, you're getting so many of your carbs from vegetables to feel full. That's not helping us progress. That's not helping our performance. That's not helping our car. That's not helping anything. Those vegetables are not giving you any fuel in the gym. They're not. We need some complex carbs in there. We need some starch carbs in there. Rice, potatoes, oatmeal, anything like that. We got to have some more fuel. We're not going to get a lot of fuel from those vegetables here.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's the thing. Those are mostly fibrous
yeah.
carbohydrates, so they are going to process differently.
Yep.
You know, there's all, I don't know how much you guys follow on social media, but there's all the rage now about the sugar diet. I don't know. I don't know if it's a rage or if it's just what's, you know, when you watch something, it just shows up, your damn algorithm just turns into this. But now people are, you know, people that were previously on the carnivore diet are now on the sugar diet because, yeah, makes sense, right? But sugar is something that I have been a proponent of since day one because my first coach was like, listen, you can have sugar. In fact, one of the best pre-workouts you can have is a Pop-Tart because it's almost all sugar, very low fat. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. The macros of a Pop-Tart are very good for, well, someone that can eat some carbs. Because a lot of the foods that we think of as carb heavy are fat heavy.
Hmm.
Carbs are freaking boring, people. Potato and rice. Like that's, you know, you can think like, oh, I'm so excited to eat carbs. I promise you, most of the people we feed carbs deep in prep are like, I'm gonna be so hungry tomorrow. This sucks.
Yeah,
Or,
right.
oh, I thought I would eat more food and I would feel better. I'm just hungrier. But that's the point. You're kicking on some hormones and stuff in your body that were shut off and it gets it moving again. So yeah, I agree with you, Evan. In fact, when I'm deep into prep, I keep candy in my bag at all times because I will go hypo in prep.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
And that's the same conversation I have with a lot of the girls that I have is that it's like when carbs get low, they try to stretch them farther when and adding more vegetables with that. And listen, here's the deal. We need a certain amount of vegetables in our diet for our fiber intake, okay? Outside of that, let's cut the shit off and let's keep it low. Let's put the food in that's actually going to help us get to where we need to go on there. I'm telling you, if I put two people in a room and you have people that they're on 100 grams of carbs, one of them is 100 grams of starch carbs, like rice and potatoes and oatmeal, things like that, and you have someone that's 75 or 50 grams of carbs being that and 50 grams of carbs being vegetables, I guarantee you they look different. I guarantee you they perform different. I guarantee you the one that's eating the starch carbs, though, is going to be far hungrier, but they're also going to make way faster progress. I'm telling you, I know that to be the fact.
And that's and I think that's a big reason too why, I know we've all had them, why a lot of clients when they travel, they drop weight like in prep because,
Yeah,
and
because
I
they don't
think
have
part
all
of it,
that.
obviously part of it is like usually when you travel, you're a little bit more active and you're moving more, but a big part of it is like you're just eating less volume overall. I know that's always
Mhm.
my case because it's like unless you want to pack all those veggies with you, I mean, generally you're eating less volume. So, you're hungrier, and you're also like, going back to what you just said, Evan, usually the people that are having less volume have a tighter waistline overall,
Yep.
right? And hey, like I don't have anything wrong with a little bit of volume to meals, in the, the depths of prep. Generally, what I'll tell my clients is if you're going to have a little bit more volume, have it earlier in the day so you have a little
Yeah.
bit more time to digest it. Whereas, and I know I made this mistake years ago when I first started in the sport, like where I would pack a crap ton of volume in like my last meal of the day, right? Because I
Yeah.
was, one of those people that was afraid of being hungry at night or afraid of being hungry before I went to bed. But I generally say if you're going to add a little bit of volume to your meals, whether it's like a big salad or whatever it may be, try to have it earlier in the day so that way you have more time throughout the day to just move around, digest that food. Because the worst thing you can do is have so much volume at night, go to bed with like your stomach protruded out, and then you're going to wake up, you're going to feel bloated, your weight's going to be up, it's going to just kind of have this domino effect onto everything else throughout the day. And something else too I wanted to bring up before we wrapped this up, is just another kind of area that like if you're an athlete and you're in the depths of prep and maybe you're feeling like progress is slowing down or stalling, something that I think naturally you should do as an athlete in general is every once in a while when you're in the gym, take a video of yourself performing some of the working sets of your exercises and like evaluate your own training intensity. Because there is going to come a point deeper into prep where like yes, you're not going to feel as strong as you were when you were out of prep, but you know being real with yourself too and continuing to still push in the gym and have a high level of intensity in the gym, like that's really important too. Are you just going through the motions or are you actually training like an athlete? So I think videoing yourself in the gym just on a couple of sets each week just to look at what do you look like at the end of those last couple reps. Are you looking like you're being challenged or are you just kind of picking up the weight, putting it down? Like I think that's another area too that you can really look at and kind of fine tune towards the end of prep too.
Lexi, that's another great point. One thing that I really pride myself on a lot of times is teaching my clients how to actually train, and like half my check-ins are doing training critiques these days with it. And a lot of people don't know what intensity is when they're training. And then, we're working either through an off season or beginning on prep. They really pick up that intensity and they know what that's like. And then we start to get a little further into prep and have to have the conversation with them. Okay, we can't keep training like we did then, right? And so while we still need to train hard, like the intensifiers, we need to pull those out here at this point. And like one set to failure, to true failure, cool, let's do that. But like we can't keep going like we were going when food was double what it is right now. And so knowing those different phases, and look, for people that discover what hard training is and what failure training is, they think that's the way it's supposed to be in all cases, all the time. And sometimes it's hard to dial them back. But like you said, Lexi, most people don't know that part of it, right? And
Yeah.
so so their training intensity is like a 3 to begin with, and it turns down to a 1 later in prep. My
Right, right.
goal is to have it start at a 10 and then be ending at like a 5.
Right, right. Yeah. And like there are going to be some days in prep where your training is just
Of
not great. You're just
course.
kind of going in
Of
and
course.
getting it done, and giving what you can that day. But like for the most part, I do find that some people just when they're deep into prep, they don't even realize it, but they're just kind of going in there, going throughout the
Mhm.
motions, and intensity is not there. And to your point, yes, Evan, you're not going to feel probably as strong as you did or at be working out as intensely as you were at the peak of your off season, but it shouldn't just be deep into prep. Okay, I'm going
No.
in, going through the motions, just picking up the weight, dropping it. Like you should be still training with some level of intensity. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's how we're
Intensity is
going to
important.
retain muscle
Yeah,
throughout prep too. So yeah, cool.
absolutely.
Anything
So
else?
nuanced, so
It
nuanced.
is.
That's that's the fun part about this job is like like you said, Lexi, puzzle pieces where it's not a straight line. And if you can repeat outcomes with different types of people, that's a good coach. Like like the thing that makes me confident in my abilities is that I've taken people with completely different builds, completely different backgrounds, completely different metabolism structures, and gotten the same result over and over. Like having your athlete walk out on that stage, um, it's just such a good feeling to just witness it and be like, wow, that's the look. There are times where I even go, I don't even care. I don't care who wins. That is, because there are some things out of your control as a coach, structure, genetics, all these things. But like when you have an athlete nail it up there, it is just very rewarding.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why going to the shows really makes coaches sharpen their swords. Like if you're not at a show, you don't got to be there every weekend. You don't got to be there every other weekend. But if you are not at enough shows, you'll lose your edge as a coach. You'll start to
Absolutely.
complain about the judging. You'll be like, "Oh, I've been backstage with athletes that are like, yeah, my coach says I'm just too muscular for this division." And I want to be like, I just
No,
watched
you're
you.
not.
You're not too muscular. You're not lean enough, and you look flat. Like, and I would never say that in person. I'm not one of those, coaches that's backstage poaching clients, but you know, I, I see it, and I'm like, that. Well, is your coach going to shows? I might say something like that. If you're not going to shows, you're not recognizing what's being rewarded, then you're not probably pushing your clients hard enough at the right time or having them ready at the right time. Yeah. All right. Well,
Right.
let's wrap it up here. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. I think as the season unfolds, we love to talk about actual topics, results, and we're gonna have some bunch of people hitting the stage here in the next couple of weeks. So we'll stay on top of it. And then just one more shout out for Reaction. I couldn't even find them on social media. They might be so new.
They are very, very new.
So they need to
Yes,
get an
I
Instagram
think
page.
this is their first run of product,
Yeah.
actually.
So
So
I want to tag them and I couldn't. So shout out to you, Reaction. Thank you. We will continue to test your flavors.
you'll be hearing about them shortly. I can promise you that. They'll be big.
Perfect. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.